Yo, yo, yo. Stop whatever you are doing right now because the Golden State Warriors just completed their entire 15-man roster in a single day and it went down fast. 2 signings, 1 day, boom, boom. First, they locked in guard Brandon Williams on a 1-year, $2.6 million deal. Then just hours later, Shams Charania dropped the news that veteran forward Georges Niang agreed to a 1-year, $3.9 million contract, back-to-back, done. The Warriors walked into Tuesday with 2 open roster spots and walked out of it fully loaded. That is how you close out your offseason shopping with a bang. Let's start with Brandon Williams because this guy is genuinely fascinating. He is 26 years old, stands 6'1", and went completely undrafted out of Arizona back in 2021. Nobody wanted him in the draft. Not a single team. And now here we are, 5 years later, and he just signed his first real NBA guaranteed deal with the Golden State Warriors. That is a grind story. That is a story about someone who refused to give up. Williams spent time in the G League, bounced around, eventually landed a 2-way deal with the Dallas Mavericks, earned a real contract, and last season he averaged 13 points and 3.9 assists in 22.2 minutes per game across 66 games for Dallas. 13 points per game coming off the bench in limited minutes. That is a dude who can flat out play. His ball handling is legit. His ability to get downhill and create off the dribble is real, and his quickness in the paint is exactly what Golden State has been missing from their reserve unit. He played 1 year of college ball at Arizona, which just so happens to be Steve Kerr's alma mater. You cannot script that. The head coach and his newest backup point guard share the same school. Kerr is gonna love working with this kid. Now here is where the conversation gets really interesting. Williams is not a shooter. His career 3-point percentage sits at around 28%, and that is legitimately below average. For a team that has built its entire identity around space and shooting, you might be wondering why they went this direction. The answer is simple. They needed someone who could create without the 3-ball, someone who could attack the rim, generate free throws, and run the offense when Stephen Curry needs a rest. That is a skill set that no one else on this roster provides at that level. He is young, he is cheap, and he has legitimate upside. At $2.6 million, you are taking zero risk on this guy. Then came Niang. And this one is AL about fit. Georges Niang is 33 years old, a 6'6" power forward with 9 years of NBA experience, and he is a career 40% three-point shooter. Shams confirmed it. The deal is $3.9 million for 1 year. Niang enters his 11th NBA season after missing all of the 2025-26 campaign due to a foot injury he suffered before training camp with the Jazz. That is a full year of rust to shake off. But the Warriors believe he is healthy and ready to contribute, and when healthy, this man is one of the most reliable stretch fours in the league. He made at least 40% from deep in 6 of his last 7 seasons before the injury. That kind of consistency does not disappear overnight. He slots directly behind Draymond Green in the power forward rotation and will serve as a stretch 4 capable of spacing the floor and hitting corner threes in catch and shoot situations. He is exactly the kind of veteran glue guy that championship caliber teams build their depth around. The impact on this Warriors team is significant, especially early in the season. Remember, Jimmy Butler is recovering from a torn ACL suffered in January, and Moses Moody tore his patellar tendon in March. Both are out to start the year. That means the wing and forward rotation was dangerously thin before these 2 signings. Niang immediately steps in as a reliable rotation piece who can give quality minutes at the 4 while Lendeborg and Gui Santos handle most of the small forward duties during the first half of the season. Williams gives Stephen Curry a real backup at point guard who can run the offense and create on his own. The Warriors came into this offseason swinging for big names and missed. LeBron went elsewhere. Other big fish swam away, but they did not panic. They added smart, cheap, experienced depth. The roster is now set. The question is whether it is enough. Are you bewimed or selling this Warriors roster for a playoff run? Type BUY or CL in the comments right now. Let us see where the Dub Nation stands. Alright, let me tell you something. While everyone is debating whether this Warriors roster is good enough to compete, Stephen Curry went ahead and made a major personal announcement that has nothing to do with basketball strategy, but everything to do with legacy. And the timing of this drop, right in the middle of swirling trade rumors, is something worth paying close attention to. Curry announced on Instagram that a brand new documentary titled Portrait of an Artist Stephen Curry will debut exclusively in IMAX theaters this October. Not streaming, not cable. IMAX, the biggest possible screen, and the subject matter is as historic as it gets. The film chronicles the journey to Curry's 4,000th career 3-pointer, a milestone that no other player in NBA history has ever reached. Not one. Curry is the first and only player to hit 4,000 threes in league history, and that record is going to stand for a very, very long time. The documentary is directed by Gotham Chopra, with Religion of Sports IMAX, NBA Entertainment, and Curry's own company, Unanimous Media, all involved in producing it. Chopra and Curry have worked together before, with the same team previously producing Stephen Vea's The Game, This time, though, the story has a natural and cinematic endpoint. The 4,003-pointer arrived one day before Curry's 37th birthday. Just let that breathe for a second. One day before his 37th birthday, the greatest shooter who ever lived reached a mark no one else has touched. That is not a coincidence. That is a man who has dedicated his entire life to his craft. Now here is the twist and why this announcement carries so much more weight than just a cool documentary drop. At this very moment, Stephen Curry is sitting on an expiring contract worth $62.5 million for the 2026-27 season. On August 29th, just 3 days from now, he becomes eligible for a contract extension worth up to 2 years and $136.7 million. That extension conversation has been going on all offseason. Sources inside the organization say there is mutual interest in getting a deal done. Anthony Slater of ESPN reported that Curry has publicly maintained he wants to play several more seasons and wants to finish his entire career as a Warrior. The Warriors owner himself shot down the trade rumors in the strongest possible terms, calling them completely made up and saying Curry is incredibly happy with the organization and his life. Those are not the words of a man preparing to push his star out the door. But let us be real with each other. The trade speculation exists for a reason. This Warriors team finished below 500 last season. They missed out on LeBron James. The roster heading into 2026-27 is built heavily on hope, health, and a prayer. Curry is 37 years old. He is still one of the best players on the planet. And there are teams out there who would absolutely move mountains to bring him in. The idea of him going somewhere with a championship window is not crazy. It is being discussed at league level. And yet everything we actually know, every concrete report, every word from Curry himself, points to him staying. He understands what the front office is building. He knows the plan, and apparently he is aligned with it. What makes the IMAX documentary announcement so powerful in this context is what it says about Curry's mentality. This is not a man who is checking out. This is not a player who is quietly preparing for a farewell tour somewhere else. This is a superstar who is celebrating the defining achievement of his career and inviting the whole world to see it on the biggest screen possible. He is not running from the Warriors' narrative. He is leaning into his own story and reminding everyone what he represents. 4,000 threes, 11 IMAX screens, one franchise, one man. The extension will almost certainly get done, but it is the timing of this documentary announcement right now, right in the middle of all this noise, that tells you everything you need to know about where Stephen Curry's head is at. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now. We drop Warriors content every single day and you do not want to miss a thing. Stay right here because what is happening in Miami involves a former Warrior and it directly affects how we judge the Warriors' off-season decisions. This one hits different. Okay, deep breath, because Klay Thompson just held his introductory press conference with the Miami Heat and what he said in that room was loud. This is no longer a rumor or a roster move. Klay Thompson officially put on the Miami Heat jersey number 11, stood in front of the cameras, and told the world exactly what he is planning to do. He called this upcoming season a redemption season, a redemptio season. Those are heavy words from a man who spent 13 years with the Golden State Warriors winning 4 championships, then spent 2 seasons in Dallas watching things fall apart, and now finds himself in South Beach standing next to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Let us back this up for context. Klay bought out the remainder of his contract with the Dallas Mavericks, reportedly giving up nearly $10 million to get out of that situation and become a free agent. Then he signed a 2-year deal with the Heat. Pat Riley and the Heat front office had been waiting for this moment all off-season. They knew what they were building. Earlier this summer, they acquired Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks in a move that shook the entire league. They already had Bam Adebayo, a 5-time All-Defense center who is arguably the best defensive big man in the game, and then they identified one more piece they needed: shooting, floor spacing, championship experience. Klay Thompson checked every single one of those boxes. Heat president Pat Riley called Klay one of the most iconic players to ever suit up in the NBA, describing him as a 4-time tested champion who fits perfectly into his role at both ends of the court. Now here is the part that makes Warriors fans sit up and think. At his introductory press conference, Klay pointed directly to Giannis Antetokounmpo as his motivation. He made it crystal clear that playing alongside a force like Giannis, who commands constant defensive attention, creates exactly the kind of open looks that a movement shooter like Klay lives for. Wide open corners, clean catches and releases with defenders scrambling to help on the Greek Freak. Klay sees this clearly. He is not naive about where he is in his career. He averaged just 11.7 points last season while shooting 39 3% from the field, both career lows. His role had shifted, his minutes had shrunk, and his time in Dallas ended on a sore note. But the Heat believe that context matters. The argument is that a motivated Klay Thompson, surrounded by elite talent in a system designed by Eric Spoelstra, can absolutely bounce back and be a genuinely impactful player. And now think about what this means for the Warriors specifically. This offseason, Golden State tried and failed to land a star. LeBron James chose Philadelphia. Other big fish swam away. Meanwhile, a team that already had Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bam Adebayo just added Klay Thompson on a 2-year deal. That Miami roster is stacked. That Miami roster is legitimately scary. And from a Warriors perspective, you have to wonder about what could have been. Klay spent 13 years in Golden State. He helped build everything the franchise stands for. Now he is in Miami, calling it a redemption year, standing next to one of the 2 or 3 best players on the entire planet and declaring championship intentions. The contrast between what Miami built this summer and what Golden State managed to put together could not be more stark. And Klay Thompson, standing at that podium in South Beach, wearing number 11, is the living embodiment of that contrast. The real question for the Warriors going forward is not about Klay himself. He made his choice, and clearly he is energized by this opportunity. The question is whether watching this Miami super team gel and compete for a title will put additional pressure on the Warriors front office to act. Does seeing a former franchise cornerstone thriving in a loaded lineup push Stephen Curry's extension talks in a new direction? Does it force Golden State to be more aggressive in the trade market? Or do they stay the course and bank on Butler and Moody returning healthy to elevate this team to where they need to be? Those are the real conversations happening inside Chase Center right now, and Klay Thompson's redemption tour in Miami is making them louder by the day. Now that the dust has settled and both signings are official, let us actually map out what the full Golden State Warriors roster looks like for the 2026-27 season, because this picture is clearer now than it has been all summer, and there are some really important things to unpack when you look at this group from top to bottom. Here is how the roster breaks down. At point guard, you have Stephen Curry running the show as the franchise centerpiece, with Brandon Williams now serving as the backup. At shooting guard, you have Brandon Podziemski, DeAnthony Melton, Will Richard, and Gary Payton-Tebben filling out that group. At small forward, Yaxel Lendeborg and Gui Santos are the healthy options, while Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody are both listed but injured and unavailable to start the season. Butler tore his ACL in January and Moody went down with a patellar tendon injury in March. At power forward, Draymond Green is the starter with Georges Niang providing depth behind him. And at center you have Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, and Charles Bassey rounding out the front court. That is your full 15-man roster. It is official. Training camp begins September 29th and the regular season is right around the corner. Now let us talk about what this actually means in terms of real minutes and real rotations. The earliest and most painful reality of this roster is the injury situation at the wing. With Butler and Moody both out to open the year, Lendeborg and Santos are going to have to carry a massive load at the small forward position despite both of them being more naturally suited for the power forward role. That is a real mismatch in terms of size and skill deployment, and Steve Kerr is going to have to manage it carefully. Into that gap steps Georges Niang, who should get a legitimate rotation role before the 2 injured players return later in the season. The Warriors believe the foot injury that kept Niang out all of last year is behind him, and if he comes back healthy and shooting that career 40% clip from deep, he is a genuine weapon in a Stephen Curry offense built around spacing. The most exciting new piece in this whole picture is actually Yaxel Lendeborg, the number 11 overall pick in the 2026 NBA draft out of Michigan. This kid was part of a national championship team in college and has drawn rave reviews for his all-around game and motor. He can guard multiple positions, he can handle the ball in the short roll, and he brings the kind of positional versatility that Kerr has always loved to deploy. The way this roster shakes out, Lendeborg is going to get thrown into the fire early with real minutes and real responsibility that can either fast-track his development or expose the limitations of a team leaning too heavily on a rookie. The honest answer is probably somewhere in the middle. Here is the concern that keeps coming up in every honest analysis of this roster. The second apron. The Warriors, with the addition of both Williams and Niang, are now projected to be at or near the second apron of the NBA salary cap. What that means practically is that they have almost zero roster flexibility for the rest of the season. No significant trades, no mid-level exceptions, no bringing in help if injuries pile up. The team is locked in. Golden State made a deliberate choice to fill all 15 spots this offseason instead of leaving one open for financial flexibility like they had done in previous years. That tells you they believe in this group. But it also means there is no cavalry coming if things go wrong. The health of Butler and Moody is not just important, it is essential. This Warriors team is built on the assumption that those 2 return and change the complexion of the rotation in the back half of the season. If they do not, this version of the Dubs will be grinding it out with an incomplete hand all year long. What do you think? Is this Warriors roster enough to make the playoffs, or is it a play-in situation at best? Drop your prediction in the comments. Be honest with me. We are all friends here. Alright, the last story of the day is one that directly connects to the Warriors even though it involves other teams, and it is the kind of off-season trade buzz that every real NBA fan needs to know about because it has real implications for Golden State's future roster and salary situation. Let us talk about the brand new trade idea circulating right now that would send Jimmy Butler from the Warriors to the Atlanta Hawks and Jonathan Kuminga to the Milwaukee Bucks, and why this scenario has people genuinely fired up. Here is the backdrop you need. Jimmy Butler is currently rehabbing a torn ACL that he suffered back in January. He is still under contract with Golden State and is listed as injured on the Warriors roster. He will not be available to start the 2026-27 season. On the other side of this story, Jonathan Kuminga, the former Warriors forward who was traded to the Hawks earlier this season, has had his $24.3 million team option declined by Atlanta. He is now an unrestricted free agent who as of right now is still without a home. It is late August, the season is weeks away, and Kuminga is still unsigned. The Bucks, who traded away Giannis Antetokounmpo to Miami this offseason and are pivoting hard into a rebuild, have been floated as a potential landing spot for Kuminga. NBA insider Jake Fisher reported that Milwaukee has genuine interest and has a traded player exception that could be used to absorb his salary. Now here is where the wild card enters. The new trade idea published just today by Hoops Wire proposes a scenario where the Warriors send Jimmy Butler to the Hawks, with Atlanta receiving Butler along with a couple of future second-round picks. In return, the Golden State side of the deal gets Kuminga heading to Milwaukee and the Bucks getting rotation pieces and picks on their end as they continue building toward the future. The logic for Atlanta is actually quite compelling. Hawks writers have pointed out that Jalen Johnson has already established himself as a #1 option, and a player like Butler, whose expiring deal carries no long-term risk even coming off an ACL injury, could pair beautifully with Johnson if healthy. Butler is a pinpoint passer who finds smart cutters, and Johnson has shown elite ability at creating those situations. The fit is real on paper. For the Warriors, this is where the debate gets spicy. On one hand, moving Butler while he is still injured would mean giving up a player who, when healthy, is legitimately one of the most impactful two-way players in the entire league. Butler's ability to create in the half-court, get to the free throw line, and guard elite scorers is precisely the kind of superpower that a team around Stephen Curry desperately needs to compete deep in the playoffs. Losing him in a trade before he even plays a single game in a Warriors uniform post-injury would be a massive gamble. On the other hand, if the Warriors are locked at the second apron with zero flexibility, and they are carrying Butler's salary through an injury rehab that may not produce returns until the second half of the season, moving him for assets or a player who can contribute right now has a certain logic to it. The Kuminga piece of this puzzle is also fascinating for Warriors fans because it reconnects the dots in an unexpected way. Kuminga spent 5 seasons in Golden State before being traded to Atlanta as part of the Kristaps Porzingis deal. His relationship with the organization and with coach Steve Kerr was reportedly rocky. He never quite found his footing in the Warriors system. Now he is a 23-year-old unrestricted free agent averaging 12.2 points, 5.6 rebounds, and 2.3 assists last season, looking for stability and a clear role. The Bucks in rebuild mode could offer him that runway, and if this domino falls, it puts a bow on the entire Kuminga chapter for Golden State while reshaping what both the Bucks and Hawks look like going into the new season. No deals are done, none of this is confirmed. But the fact that Butler's name is showing up in trade conversations before the season even starts tells you everything about how unsettled this offseason still feels for multiple teams around the league, including the Warriors, whose roster construction decisions are still sending ripple effects across the whole NBA. And that is a wrap on today's 5 biggest stories. To the left of your screen, we have another video you absolutely need to check out. To the right, another one that is going to have you talking for the rest of the day. Click one and keep the Warriors' energy going. Real quick recap before we bounce. Today, we covered the Warriors completing their entire roster with the back-to-back signings of Brandon Williams and Georges Niang. We broke down Stephen Curry's massive IMAX documentary drop right in the middle of contract extension talks. We got into Klay Thompson putting on that Heat jersey and declaring his redemption season alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo. We mapped out the full Warriors rotation and what this locked roster actually means for the season ahead. And we finished with the wild new trade idea swirling around Jimmy Butler, the Hawks, Kuminga, and the Bucks. That is 5 stories, 0 filler, all Warriors. See you in the next one. Let us go Dubs!